quite often I will see agricultural zones that allow 1 unit to the acre, even though it would be pretty difficult to have a commercial farm on a 1 acre farm. So this restrictive zoning for the southern side can be very, very helpful. In fact, of the 20 top programs that I looked at, all but 2 had at least 1 unit per 5 acre zoning in the sending area.
I just wondered if you could provide the PowerPoint that you could give to everyone.
Yeah, I will leave a disc for you. I apologize that, and so
it's not on the website, probably.
It is not,
okay.
But I'll just leave a DVD.
We will make copies for the audience that's here. Saves you, taking a lot of notes. And if I don't have the mailing address, make sure I do.
Yeah, very good. Appreciate that. Thank you. Whoops, did I skip something?
Just repeat the hot seat.
That's too much.
I guess not. Okay. Okay. Some programs that don't do so well don't do well because they are allowing developers other ways of getting to that bonus density other than TDR. In other words, sometimes a community will allow increased density by having an entry feature to their subdivision, or a fountain, or a recreational amenity. All good things, of course, but if the developer has a choice between saving open space at some off-site location or providing an amenity to his or her development, their chances are they're going to choose the latter. So the fewer alternative ways of getting a density bonus, the better. And of course, the worst case scenario is where you have a TDR program on the books, but the public officials continue to approve upzonings without requiring the TDRs, because someone has a good reason for getting an exception, and pretty soon if you have so many exceptions that a developer can point to, the program just unravels at that point.
We have planned development regulations where a concentrated development is allowed on large lots if they put the rest of the parcel site in open space, which is kind of similar to this, but would you regard that as a disincentive against?
I would if you can get to the higher density by PUD without a TDR requirement. But what you see in a lot of programs is that if you're going from your underlying zoning to whatever you're getting through the PUD, if those are treated as bonus units, that works. Did you see what I mean? In other words, you treat your PUD as your receiving zone. Mm-hmm. And everything above the underlying zoning density is bonus. And you have to buy TDRs for all those bonus units. In fact, that's a very easy way to implement the TDR programs, is say your receiving area is going to be your PUD zone, and from now on, this is the requirement for all bonus units in the PUD. Yes.
Can an in-loop program have the unintentional effect of undermining the TDR program as another way of increasing density?
Well, it would if you weren't using that money for open space preservation, but it's dedicated exclusively to open space preservation.
In terms of disincentives, I wonder if other states and communities, states really, have what Connecticut has, which I assume is a disincentive. And that's the affordable housing law here in the state of Connecticut. Mm-hmm. If you're a developer and you want to have a higher density, if you put in 30% of the units as affordable, you basically can write your own ticket in terms of density and argue over it with the Planning and Zoning Commission, because the zoning rules are off the books. And the decision is based on health, safety, welfare principles rather than zoning regulations. I would assume that I haven't had a conversation with developers about that because we don't have many of them doing much up here, but that would be a disincentive. Would that be your feeling that that's undermined?
Yeah, that's extreme. The state laws that I'm more familiar with, they will say 25% density bonus for affordable housing. And that's what they have in California. And a lot of developers, they simply don't want to deal with affordable housing, so quite often it doesn't become a problem. And another instance is where you basically say, yeah, the first 25% of bonus is affordable, but then after that, that's only by TDR. And sometimes, you know, you can still get, you can double up affordable bonus and a TDR bonus that way. But if the sky's the limit when you use affordable housing, and if your developers want affordable housing, want to meet those criteria, yeah, they're not going to use TDR in that.
Yeah, many of us feel that law's got many flaws. I just think this is another one of them.
I think in our case, it's not that the developers want affordable housing, but they know that if they provide 30%, then they need not pay attention to the zoning regulations in that town, or the wetlands regulations. So it sounds as though it's designed by the developers themselves, actually.
Also, in the affordable housing, in Milford right now, we got one that we don't need, state financing. State put financing up to the developer. We really didn't have a thing to say about it. If anybody's familiar with the Milford, go look at what's being built behind the state garage up on Route 7. That was state land that was sold to a developer, financed by the state of Connecticut to go with affordable housing. Planning never saw it. I don't know whether it's zoning did or not, but we never saw it.
Oh, it preempted your local zoning.
Sure,
Right.
well, the state of Connecticut, well, living here, they can be obnoxious.
The whole statute does.
I want to ask just a time question. I want to make sure we have time for the second session. How much more do you have to cover, and how much would you like to leave for questions after?
Why don't you tell me, maybe 10 more minutes?
Let's see, if you could do, if you do a little less than 10, then we'll have time for a few questions. Then we'll go.
Okay. Are you ready? You know, I do want to talk about this, though, and that is that one of the things that makes a TDR program work is to make sure that you're creating a program that works for your buyers and your sellers. And I'm afraid this is where a lot of programs fail, because they don't take a look at this particular issue. And I think the best way to look at it is through an example. When you're first forming a TDR program, not that you put any, you don't necessarily have to put any numbers into a TDR program, but you have to sort of estimate what it is that a developer is going to want to pay for a TDR, because that then becomes your building block. And in this particular example, let's say you think a developer is going to be willing to pay easily $10,000 for a bonus dwelling unit or for a TDR. And then if you look in your sending area and you see that your property owners, your farmland owners or whoever they are, have been selling and seem to be willing to sell easements at the rate of about $2,000 an acre, then it's sort of showing you that a correct allocation formula might be one TDR per 5 acres. And that might be regardless of whatever your zoning is for that sending area. In other words, sometimes when a program will adopt what's called a 1-to-1 transfer ratio, and if in fact that is not, if that creates a TDR that is too expensive, your developers will not buy those TDRs. They'll simply say, I can't make a profit buying a TDR that costs, you know, $80,000, $100,000 or whatever, and you sort of missed an opportunity to create that. So one thing to keep in mind. So that was sort of like the 5 top success factors. The others are, quite often it's very important to your developers to be certain that they can use these TDRs. A strong public support for preservation helps a lot. One of the reasons is it gets you a good program to begin with, but also TDR programs take a long time to implement, decades, frankly, and over time it helps to have a public that's watching that to make sure that exceptions aren't granted along the way. Simplicity helps a lot. TDR promotion helps. TDR banks, only 4 out of the 20 top programs have TDR banks, but you recall that I gave a few examples. King County, Palm Beach County, Florida.